everybody. Welcome in. It's the Wrestling Mat. I'm Matt Camp. How you doing? Good to be with you. A little early. Starting early. Today here on the program. Thanks for being with us, as always, here at the WrestlingMatchShow.com. Subscribe wherever to get your podcast. Subscribe here at WrestlingMatchShow.com. Won't miss an episode. Become a member. Because if you're a member, you're watching this thing live. I'm up at like 9:30 a.m. on this Wednesday morning. So make sure you come become a member. You won't miss anything. Got the NXT prospect rankings coming out, I think Friday is what I'm shooting for right now. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Apologies for yesterday. Some of you may have been in here for about 15 minutes, had some major tech issues, had to cut it short, but we're back today. Good to go. Hello, how are you? What up to Dennis? Good hat choice, WCW. Ready for Full Gear Week, indeed. Full Gear Week is this week. Will we feel the boom? Never done that before. Boom. I want to hear that when that theme song hits tonight in Reading, Pennsylvania, when Big Boom AJ comes out. Oh, that guy's the best. I'm so happy that it's QT and him, and I know it's on 0 Hour and all that stuff. QT's gonna make him look like $1 million. QT's promo back at him was really fun. Look, I like that AEW's doing that. I think they should lean into that a little bit more, that kind of stuff. Find different ways to promote your product, and sure, get one of the most popular TikTok stars out there to come ahead and do so. If the Rizzler does a run-in, oh, man. And by the way, Big Justice was with his dad at an indie show recently and hit one hell of a spear. So I hope that QT Marshall gets bounced around the ring by Big Justice and AJ and the whole family, and Rizzler just kind of poses and does this thing, and thanks for coming, QT. But yeah, Full Gear coming up. Loved November Rain the other day. I think I talked about it on, I don't know what day it was, Monday. I think AEW has something with that. I think it's something that they consider. I don't know if you can do it for every pay-per-view, but I like the idea of licensing music and having that big-time video package to go, hey, get fired up. Here we go. This is what we have coming your way. And listen, you encapsulate that many feuds into an 8 or 9 minute video, you're going to get the absolute best of those feuds, which is all wrestling is. When you're promoting, you take your best stuff, and they did that. And yeah, I think Full Gear is going to be a show, a very good show and a very important show for AEW. It is what's become one of their bigger shows of the year. There's a lot on there. We'll talk more about that later on in the week as they present Dynamite, Go Home Dynamite tonight from Reading, Pennsylvania. Because I didn't get to talk about it a lot yesterday. What I want to get to today, as you see it right there in the title, why is Gunther looking so weak? We're going to talk about that booking of Gunther since Crown Jewel and what has happened with him and Damian Priest. Are they going down the right path? I've spoken a lot about the women's war game stuff. I was on Busted Open After Dark on Monday night, and I've said a lot of that here already, but, you know, throwing that match together is a disservice to the women that are involved. It's a disservice to the women who, other than, you know, Rhea and Liv and I guess by connection Raquel, it's not a hot enough rivalry across the board to warrant a War Games match. And I was happy to see, because I get called, he's bitter and he's like blah, 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 whether, you know, it's here on the comments here and there, but the Busted Open Nation will tend to go in that direction. And I was very pleasantly surprised and happy to see that the clip that was posted by Busted Open with me talking about the women's War Games match being slapped together without a good enough story. You know, a couple of those comments, but for the most part, people agreed. And they're not happy that the women were being treated in such a way. And as I said, it's not fair to compare this year's War Games matches. The Bloodline story, years of build. I mean, it's there. You're not going to get every War Games match like where we're at with the Bloodline. You're not. But I don't think they have done nearly enough work with the women and star power all over the place. Liv and Rhea and Bianca and Jade and Nia. I mean, it's got big players in it for the most part. But like I said, I had an issue with Liv and Nia having this very important match over the blah, 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 ground jewel. And now it's like, well, I don't like you, but I don't dislike you. Okay, I guess they're cool. EO being on the babyface team. Only a little bit of history there with Bianca and Jade. Zero tension between teammates that have feuded, that have never teamed before, between, people who just wrestled recently, people who have long history. It's a problem, and I saw a lot of people say this as well. It's a problem when you have to book a match to suffice a already previously announced stipulation. We've known for months that War Games was happening at Survivor Series. The Bloodline stuff fits into it perfectly. People have been fantasy booking that since April. And here we are. But I don't think enough care has been given to the women's match. And unfortunately, that's happened a couple times. You know it's coming. You know it. Plan accordingly. And it's somewhat shocking because I think we have seen why the product is hotter, more care as a whole, in general, provided to WWE storylines under Triple H. It's far from perfect. It is the time to praise them because of what they're bringing in and all that. And sometimes, and I'll get shit for this one, if a product is hot, it's not necessarily about the full show. If a product is hot, it could be about 1, 2, maybe 3 stories going on that are really drawing, that are really bringing in the viewers. I think WWE has, the gold in the Bloodline. Interestingly enough, SmackDown ratings were down significantly. Raw has been hovering in that 1.5 to 1.6 to 1.7 area, obviously dealing with Monday Night Football for about 5 more weeks. SmackDown was down, and they went up against the Tyson-Paul fight. So I get that. I think, and someone asked me, it might have been the other day, or Nerdy Dude or somebody had said, do you think SmackDown's the better show right now? And I lean yes on that because I am more compelled by their big stuff. And I know I had said, about a month ago that I thought SmackDown was bottom heavy. I think they are putting on a much more even show. I think, like I said, when you got Cody and Kevin and Randy away from the Bloodline stuff, you have strengthened your main event scene. But as we posted yesterday, right now Roman's stuff feels bigger than Cody's. Now, hell of a problem to have, but it was telling that the Netflix advertisements, who were the 4 pictures? John Cena, Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, not John Cena, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, Bianca Belair. Now, I know people float back and forth between the shows, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I'm pretty sure that's 4 people that are not on the Raw roster. And believe me, not a surprise whatsoever that the biggest stars are being promoted for that show. That will be, I believe, an all-hands-on-deck situation. Obviously, they are throwing a lot of promotion into it. Saw a little bit over the weekend during the Paul Tyson fight. You saw Triple H at the Travis Scott show. They're in L.A. It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge, as it should be. But I do think that right now, WWE is, for the most part, they connect the dots. I don't think you see a lot of stuff on the show, almost never, that is useless or just there. I think everybody who's on the show has a purpose. But the women have, I think, been a victim of lazy booking. And maybe they can get away with that right now. You know, like that's what I'm saying. The product is so hot and the tickets are sold. I think they've pushed, 14,000 in Vancouver for the show. People are still eating it up. The idea of just having Rhea come back and say War Games, they were like, hey, you know what? That's good enough. And maybe it is. Maybe it is. I always say I got 3 hats. Analyst. That's 1. Fan. Performer. How do I look at it? Part of the show, watching the show, analyzing the show. I heard the pop for Rhea. She yells War Games. They go nuts. Star power works. Star power can overcome booking. You know, those War Games matches, I think there's more hype, and the idea of it is an easily promotable thing, just like Blood and Guts is for AEW. But actually executing a good War Games match is not easy. It's a lot of punches and kicks in the corner, and you got some big spots, and you'll do your, West Side Story face-off between the 2 rings, and someone will do a Tower of Doom spot, and, and EO will jump off the cage again and, be in a trash can or God knows what else. Maybe something that's Vancouver-centric. And look, spots will work. I talk about this all the time. Can you capture people on their phones? Can you do that? If EO jumps off that cage, it's worth it. It'll be worth it for that clip. That's what they'll take out of that. I talk about that all the time, being able to take your matches, being able to take your segments and stretch how much you get out of them into social media in the days you're not on the air. They will take both War Games matches, and you'll get the big spots, and you'll get different camera angles, and they'll show Cole and Tessitore react. They'll get the most out of that. But to me, I'm only really invested, at least in terms of what's announced right now, in the Meds Bloodline match. Dennis says it's broadcast Fox is big dog and could demand more. Do we assume Netflix is the big dog now over USA? I would assume so, since they have to establish things. Yeah, I lean in that direction. And very interesting news, and I won't go too deep into this, but Comcast announced this morning that they are splitting off Comcast, which has NBC, Universal, and all that. They're splitting off a lot of their, I don't know if it's all or a lot of their assets on cable, including USA Network, including, I believe they own Rotten Tomatoes and some. They are splitting that off into its own thing. I don't think that will affect Raw in any way. I haven't read a lot about it. I saw it quickly this morning. I saw it talked about for anybody that likes sports and entertainment-y news. Alex Sherman just launched something for CNBC. Really good stuff. He broke the story about John Tesh and Roundball Rock. That one, basketball. Are we going to get a copyright check for that? NBC put that in their promo, and they don't own it yet. But he was talking about it, and he's covered some of this stuff. But yeah, USA is going to kind of have their own, being that group of channels, and they're splitting off. Do I think that Netflix is more of the? Yeah, I think so. Now, I don't know what Netflix does know or doesn't know or how they view things. And I know there was that story of, well, they want CM Punk and Cody Rhodes and Roman. I will tell you this, Dennis. You mentioned Fox. Fox had people behind the scenes that knew wrestling, that were wrestling fans. They had people that worked on, backstage. Jacob Ullman, who's been an unbelievable executive for Fox sports for, God, almost 30 years and everything he's done there. Huge wrestling guy. Was going to shows before Fox started. Has a lot of friends in the industry. I've spoken to him on multiple occasions. So they had, there were people like him and others that were wrestling people. I don't know what Netflix has over there. I don't know if this was, negotiated at the top and everybody else is kind of figuring it out. So I don't know. I don't know what Netflix views or wants or whatever. Another comment here from Dennis. Feels like less than half even WCW War Games were any good, but they're great for hype when built right and should fill the gift kosher for online. Exactly. That works. That's fine. My question is, you booked the Women's War Games match. What's the result? What's the end game there? Like I said, yesterday, 2 days ago, or whatever, I said, Rhea pins Candace. Whatever. Rhea pins Liv, different story. And they've tried to, I think, use the pinfall, use the decision to go on to what's next, but I don't know. I really don't know. Like, are you going to Jade pins Nia? Are we going there? I thought that could have been a WrestleMania match last year. For the men, obviously, we're still waiting. And I'll talk about that. Let me get to the men here real quick. Seth, once again, rebuffing Sami and the Usos. And then loses the main event because all of them get involved. And then Solo distracts him on the outside. And Bronson wins. Now, Seth has already rebuffed them multiple times. And I am aware that they had to do the Bronson match on Monday last week to air after SmackDown last week because it was a tape show. And you had Bronson end up on the Bloodline team last Friday, and everybody in attendance on last week's Raw who saw the second taping didn't know that. But then, of course, commentary can play that up, and they did post commentary, and you can certainly hear that with Tessitore and Wade, that they, added some commentary after the fact and all that. And that's how that goes on tape shows. So my question is now, Seth has said everything, right? I'm never standing behind him again. I'm never backing him. I'm never allowing him to take over this company, meaning Roman Reigns. I'm also not going to tag with a Roman Reigns wannabe. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. I agree with Seth. He's the one who is currently standing his ground. Jay kind of folded quickly. Sami folded very quickly. Talked about that on Monday. Is Sami looking at a bigger... Is he looking bigger? I said, does he want to be the new wise man? Check out Monday's episode. But everybody else, it's been, so I said, it's been pretty fast. Jay, no. All right, I'm in. Sami, no. Okay, I'm in. And now we're all wearing the same t-shirt. But Seth has said no now multiple times. And the assumption, the easy assumption, is based on what happened on Raw. All right, I'll join. I want Bronson. And is the Seth Bronson thing at the level where just because Bronson hit a tsunami and beat him with outside interference, is that enough? Is that enough for him to go, you know what? This 2.5-month feud, 2-month feud with Bronson Reed, I'm so mad at him, I will tag with Roman Reigns. It doesn't feel like enough to push Seth, even if it's getting him in the ring with Bronson Reed. It's short term. And I mean short term is not in terms of like, well, this will be it for Bronson. I'm talking more, it hasn't been that long where Seth and Roman is good. I mean, it's 10 plus years. Ups and downs. Think of this year. I go back to everything that Seth did at WrestleMania. Look, I know that people who feuded end up on the same side sometimes, or they make up or whatever. I get that. But to have Seth, Sami, Jay, to a lesser extent, Jimmy, all forgive Roman months after Cody, a month after Cody tagged with Roman. I don't know. I feel like it kind of undoes the impact that Roman had negatively. That's why Kevin Owens is losing his mind. But part of me wants, and I think it makes sense for Seth's character to stand strong. I even said, as much as I want Bronson Reed in a cage, I'm not doing it. So does Monday really push him? Also, people have brought up that the new Bloodline, and I think part of this is intentional, but the new Bloodline has now pushed everybody to join Roman. They mess with Jay. Cost him the IC title. All right, I'm on the team. They recruited Sammy. No, we didn't want him. Blah, 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 blah. We don't like you talking to them. All right, he's on the team. They haven't done all that much to Seth so far. I want Seth to continue holding out. And maybe he never takes it. And maybe he goes, you know what? I'm not going to fall for it. The rest of you have. The rest of you have been pushed by Solo and the new Bloodline to fight against him. Now, part of me says that's Solo as a leader making mistakes. Because why would you want to galvanize Roman's side? But part of me says, hey, this new Bloodline, and I've talked about this, they don't plan things the way Roman did. They don't have a game plan. They just go out and wreck things. They wreak havoc. That's not a bad thing. You do need to have some differentiation into how they operate and how Solo operates versus Roman operates. So there is that, young leader making mistakes kind of thing. But at the same time, they're just going, hey, we want to take out whoever. So, I guess Seth would still probably be the favorite to be the fifth man on the team. I just hope they do it correctly. Now, I want to talk about Gunther. You can't win forever, right? You got to lose at some point. Losses can be handled in a way where it doesn't hurt the man or woman who lost. There's a way to do that. Sami, it's more about who got the win. Sami Zayn beating Gunther at WrestleMania, having to hit the top rope brainbuster, finally being the man to end a 666-day reign. It was a big deal. And like I said, there's been connective tissue to that. Sami beats Gunther. Nobody could beat Gunther. Then Braun Breaker beats Sami. And as I have said, there is a story because Braun Breaker beat Gunther at NXT, but we don't talk about that. And then Jay beat Braun, and then Braun beat Jay back, and blah, 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 blah. But that was a big deal. And they iced Gunther for a little bit. He comes back and wins King of the Ring. He beats Priest for the world title. He beats Randy Orton. He beats Sami Zayn. And then we run into an obstacle. We run into Crown Jewel. Talked about it plenty. Hated that Cody and Gunther were facing off for the first time with stakes that don't matter. And shock, 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 we haven't heard about those titles because they don't matter. So you beat Gunther for the second time ever, for the first time in his reign. He's been champion for 3 months? And you've already beaten him. So you beat him for Crown Jewel, sports washing, whatever. Let's take fancy pictures with Cody Rhodes and Liv Morgan, and let's never talk about those titles again until next year. All right, fine. But then they have pushed this narrative that it's shaken Gunther's confidence. And, Priest's first promo was, as I said, very 8 Mile B-Rabbit. Let me tell you all the things you're going to say about me, and I'll flip it on you. I thought Priest came across so much better in that segment than anything that happened in their lead up to SummerSlam. And I know a lot of people right now are completely on board with main event Priest. They like his presentation. They like how he acts. And some people liked what happened on Monday. I did not. You have Gunther and Kaiser have this backstage thing where Gunther's kind of telling Kaiser, hey, you got to stop speaking for me. I'm not mad at you, but you got to go do your own thing. I got Priest handled. Don't you worry about that. But then at the end, he looks for this confirmation. He looks for this vote of confidence from Kaiser of does that remind you of the old ring general? Yeah, sure. Okay. And Kaiser walks away, and we know what he ends up doing, wrecking the IC title match. And then Gunther, with a noticeable lack of, and I hate using aura because it gets overused, but lack of Gunther, takes off, like they pan over, you see Priest, he takes off the jacket, he walks right up to him, he puts him in a choke. Priest gets out of it, he kicks him once, and Gunther is down. And he's just down in the ball, and Priest sits there, and he looks like a badass. I don't have a problem with that. Oh, Nerdy Dude said he could translate what Gunther said to Kaiser. Please do. I assume what he said in English, he also said in German. It's German, right? Yeah, obviously, you know it. And I don't have a problem with Damian Priest looking like a badass. And I saw people saying that he did look that way. No problem. No problem laying out a heel. My problem is they having Gunther writhe on the ground like that with Priest just sitting over him. That ain't Gunther. He's a big, giant, menacing dude who doesn't lose and is dominant. You want to have him beg off? You want to have Priest get the upper hand and Gunther bail? Go ahead. But to have him just kind of writhing on the ground after not really having much happen to him, and Priest make a point to say, oh, you might be, the ring general, but in the streets, so Gunther just loses his fighting ability if he's not in the ring? Come on. You tell me. For the second time they're doing this match, for the build so far, are you into it? Comment below. Hit me up in the live chat if you're a Matt member. Are you, does what they're doing with Priest and Gunther, specifically this past Monday, the goal should always be, are we taking you another step forward towards this match at the pay-per-view, towards this world title match, towards this world title rematch? Did they go in the right direction on Monday? Do you want to see that match more? Did they convince you that Priest can beat Gunther? Because to me, the idea of Priest getting in Gunther's head and Gunther not being on his game, I wouldn't want to beat him I wouldn't want that to be the reason he loses. I want him to get beat. If you're going to beat him. Don't build in, well, he was off his game and he wasn't as confident. What happened to That's not who Gunther is. And look, if he's going to win, it's still it's a moot point. But I think they are certainly opening the door, and you cannot underrate how highly the company thinks of Damian Priest. And I have noticed how many more fans he's picked up, and there are people that are with him. Would I beat Gunther with Damian Priest on Survivor Series? No. Could they? Yes, absolutely. It's almost a chance to relaunch Priest. Nerdy Dude says a little bit more to it in German than in English. Kaiser's dad was a big deal in wrestling, Germany, so Gunther basically told Kaiser, make your dad proud and be yourself. And you know what? I interviewed Imperium a couple times, and I loved talking about that with Kaiser. I thought, God, I remember sitting down with, it was just those two. It was Kaiser and Gunther. I interviewed them a couple times. And Kaiser was so good talking about all that stuff, and Gunther was talking about that. And, and that's not a story that's going to be explored on television because Kaiser's a heel. But that is certainly a babyface story to talk about down the road. But I like that Gunther went there. That is not really part of Kaiser's character, is that his dad was such a big deal in Germany in terms of wrestling and all that. But I like that. I appreciate. Thank you, Nerdy Dude, for translating that. I would get Kaiser away from Gunther. He's going to come up on Friday's show. I'll tell you that right now. Most interesting wrestlers of the week. Ludwig Kaiser is going to be on that list. I just don't think good for Kaiser. All I would say is if Gunther loses to Priest, perhaps, and this kind of throws a wrench into things, or maybe it doesn't, perhaps Gunther takes it out on Cody because he lost to Cody. You started this. Maybe he goes after him. Maybe we get that feud properly done. But I don't think the booking of Gunther has been done properly. I didn't like that image on Monday of him laying on the ground. It's not who he is. And, if you want to say they accomplished anything, I think the door opened a little more of the idea or the possibility of Gunther losing to Priest at Survivor Series. I just wouldn't have booked him to look so vulnerable and weak. If I'm wrong, tell me. Or if you think otherwise, tell me. I get that too. Are you looking forward to that match? Were you ever looking forward to that match? Are you looking forward to it now? Or are you looking forward to it less? Hit me up below, live chat. Love to hear from you as well on that one. All right, let's move on to NXT last night. I have talked about a lot recently how NXT is a predominantly women's show. Trick and stuff with Chase U and Ridge, Oba and Tony and Ethan Page and all that. But, there are more women stars. Women are a bigger part of the show. They're a more consistent part of the show. It's a deeper division. We know all that. And I had said after the ECW show, when we had those 10 women main event on a show that Jada Park and Lola Vice opened up, so wow, these Iron Survivor qualifiers for the women, based on that match and just how deep the women's division is, man, all those Iron Survivors can be booked as toss-ups. And I'll get to last night's matches. And then on the flip side, we got Nathan Frazier and Eddie Thorpe. Now, no knock on those guys. Not at all. But let me tell you something. Let me just make sure I have this correct. Okay? Eddie Thorpe. Here's Eddie Thorpe. Ready, folks? Before he somehow ended up in the Iron Survivor qualifier, Eddie Thorpe beat Ashanti the Adonis on September 17th. And that is his last singles match on television. Eddie Thorpe did not wrestle in the month of October. Eddie Thorpe did not have a television match in November until last night. And before he beat Ashanti the Adonis in 3 minutes and 28 seconds on September 17th, you have to go back to August 13th for his previous match where he lost in 3 minutes and 9 seconds to Lexis King. And I say all that to say that's where the men are. Nathan Frazier versus Eddie Thorpe was an Iron Survivor qualifier. Compare that to where the women are at. Once again, it's not a knock on the wrestlers. Obviously, Frazier's been busy in the tag division, and there's something of that, rivalry between him and Axiom or, whatever you want to say. But in no way did that feel like a toss-up. And the fact that Eddie Thorpe was booked and had, I would say, quote, earned this qualifying match doesn't make real sense and shows you the lack of depth in the division. And Frazier wins. Because the tag team division's watching the whole thing, whatever. Now, here's a toss-up. Was very surprised to see, although understandably so, Stephanie Vaquer versus Jada Parker. That is a toss-up to me. So, Lola distracts Jada with a brick, and Stephanie wins. Fine. Jada just won a hardcore match pretty definitively against Lola Vice. So we're going back. Also, listen, I'm a big Jada Parker fan. There was no doubt she'll be in my NXT prospect rankings. Quite high. Stephanie Vaquer needs a distraction to win. Kind of book yourself into a corner there. I don't love that. I don't. But she's in. Jada's out. Now, I don't think Jada's out. I'll get to that. And then in the one that was obvious, Zarya defeated Ren Sinclair. Cool. She's in. And obviously the Fallon thing was a total brawl, blah, 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 blah. So we have Zeta, Stephanie Vaquer in so far. My guess, what's announced for next week? They've announced the next week's qualifiers, right? I think Julia's in one. I know that. I'm going to see if I can bring that up here for a sec. Let's see. Matches. We know Soul's in. We know Stephanie Vaquer's in. We know Zarya's in. 2 more spots. We know that Wes is in. We know Javon Evans in. We know Nathan Frazier's in. 2 more spots. And we know the title match, which I'll get to here. Next week, we are going to see Kalani Jordan versus Julia in a qualifier, and Ethan Page versus Axiom in a qualifier. So they're spacing them out a little bit. Once again, the women's one is a toss-up, although I think you'd lean Julia, I would assume. Page and Axiom, I think Page gets in if I had to guess. But the women are deeper, and you can see that. And look, there's going to be some big names that don't end up in that match. Do they find their way into something else? We will see. is, here's my question. Shouldn't, like, is Fallon going to be in a qualifier? I know she's North American champion, but it's not the top title. Shouldn't she try to find her way into the mix? Unless she's defending her title, that's different. I will say, though, it's telling that they only announced one match for next week for the men and the women, because that leaves one spot available, and I happen to think that we will get a last chance match for that 5th spot. I think that gets Jada in. And they've done that before. Hey, you lost a qualifier, but there's one more chance. Like, I could see that happening, and it's happened before. Nerdy Dude says, Eddie Thorpe last week just went to Ava and was just like, can I be in the match? Like, why? Yeah. And she said yes. After the week prior, and this is a booking hole. A week prior, she brings all the tag teams in, and I got to see it from you, and I got to see who's it going to be? Who's going to step up? And Eddie Thorpe's like, hey, can I be in the Iron Survivor? Yeah, sure. It's like they tried to give him a little something as opposed to just going like already in the ring, Eddie Thorpe. But at the same time, it didn't make sense. Like, they didn't just throw him in there against Frazier. They tried to, hey, Ava, I want me. So they tried to put a little story there, but it also, like, why would she agree to it? Why? What has he done? And he lost, as he should have. But listen, it ain't all perfect. I get that. They put a lot of emotion into the Chase Holland match. Andre gets on social media and says, I need the biggest student section ever. It's the biggest match ever, blah, blah. Wear your red. Shawn Michaels shows up in some SUV, and he's wearing a Chase U shirt. All right. And that's, I've said a lot about Chase U. In that NXT bubble, a very Lucha Ground-esque bubble, Chase U is a real college in NXT world with a classroom and all that. And we're supposed to just go along with that. And it's fun, and we do. But as I have said many times, it's a lower ceiling. That's not going to translate to Raw or SmackDown. So what did they do last night? They, once again, because they've done it plenty of times before with him, they put all the heat on Rich. They had him take out everybody. And the way they lined him up like that, Duke through the thing, Chase flipping over the top, taking out everybody, they got that shot of everybody left laying and Andre in the corner, and he lost. Chase U is done. Ridge is the number 1 contender. You have a big monster heel for Trick to topple. Kind of like the type of people Cody should be facing. Although Kevin will be that soon. And Chase U is done. Where does that leave Andre Chase? Where does that leave Thea Hale? Where does it leave Riley? Where does it leave Duke Hudson? I'm still on board with Thea Hale being the top prospect from that group, the one who I think will have the best career. Duke Hudson's had his ups and downs. I still think there's a lot there in him. He's very funny. He has that smugness to him. Hell, he even did a YouTube show called Smug. And look, I wonder where this leaves Andre Chase. Because I think he's a very valuable part of NXT. And way more experience than I think people realize. Bravado Brothers in Ring of Honor going way back. That's the kind of guy that people in NXT who are still cutting their teeth or trying to polish their television, that's the kind of guy that's going to help you get better. Because he has so much experience and he's worked everybody. But where does that, are they going to go, are they going to go bump Corbin with Andre Chase? I'm interested to see what they do. But, yeah, I think Chase U had unfortunately run its course. And if you're going to end a group, do it in a way, a beloved group, do it in a way that somebody gets a lot of heat off it. And that's what they did with Ridge Holland, who I think they're doing a really good job with. I think Ridge is very hateable. I think he's executing his role quite nicely. You have nothing to like about him. You're booking him strong. I think his promos have gotten better. It's been a good restart for Ridge Holland. Nerdy says they should have given Nathan Favor spot to Brooks Jensen, in my opinion, so Eddie Thorpe would have lost anyway. Brooks Jensen gets booked. But so you seem to like Brooks Jensen. I'm not super in on it. I haven't been. I thought the thing last week with him and Spears and whoever was driving that car, they made it seem very ominous, as if like Spears is going to be willing to do something dark and dangerous already or whatever to take out Tony D'Angelo, and Brooks wins and then, or Brooks loses, then takes out Tony's knee, and Spears gets, I don't know, an advantage. But they made it seem like Spears is going to do something, dark and dastardly and dangerous. I don't know, just the way they framed that last week. Like, what's going on in his mind? Nerdy Dude said, in my opinion, Duke Hudson was already good when he was a team with Shane Thorne. I'm a big Duke Hudson fan. Have been. All of his and previous incarnations of Vink and all that. But his old YouTube shows were hilarious. Really funny. Really, really funny. He's had his stops and starts, but he has a very unique charisma about him, and he carries himself with a level of confidence when you see it on screen. It's not that far off from the guy in real life, but he's super, like, smug is the right thing, but in a very funny way. So I hope Duke Hudson can get a real, chance after this. And like I said, I think he is a firecracker in the best way possible, where she can be, and we've seen it in NXT, but she can be someone that, as an underdog, the crowd can get behind. I could see that, kind of her being, you could kind of reset her a little bit to what she used to be if you bring her up to Raw or SmackDown, and she's just super excited, and she's talking to baby faces, and, well, you got to calm down. You're new. I'm just so excited to get out there. And then, she kicks ass, and it's one of those, oh, wow, she's really good. I think that's how I would go with the on Raw or SmackDown. It's something to think about as they move into, what I assume will be back to 3 hours of Raw. There's rumors that that SmackDown goes 3 hours. You're going to need wrestlers for that. There's been people that have been down there for 2-3 years. It's a shit or get off the pot situation for some of those people. And I think there's going to be some call-ups, and some will hit and some will miss. But we will see. Tomorrow is a very TBA show because I am traveling to see family, and I will not be back here in my house until late tomorrow night. So keep an eye on our socials. There may not be a show tomorrow, but we will be back on Friday. Just kind of seeing what I have in terms of capabilities and internet and all that stuff to record tonight or tomorrow. Keep an eye on it. If not, definitely back Friday. Probably a big show Friday. But as always, head over to ProWrestlingTees.com/TheWrestlingMat. Get your Wrestling Mat merch like Nerdy Dude. And if you're a Mat member, you get discount on that. Become a Mat member by going to TheWrestlingMatShow.com, clicking down below, hit that join button. You get this show first before everybody else does, live in the morning. Everybody else getting in at 5 p.m. Eastern, whether it's right here on YouTube on TheWrestlingMatShow.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review. And that's pretty much it for today. So enjoy Dynamite tonight. And I will be back this week to talk about wrestling even more right here on The Wrestling